Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of thecinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film, and this year's podcast media partner for the deadCenter 2024 Film Festival. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we are so privileged to have the opportunity to talk with one of this year's deadCenter icons, Dylan Brodie. We're going to kick things off by talking with Dylan about what it means to see the film industry thriving here in Oklahoma. We'll then talk about some of the exciting projects that he's worked on throughout his career, and then we'll close out the conversation by discussing a couple of short films that he has playing at the festival. Before we get to the interview, I just wanted to note that if you're listening to the show and enjoy this conversation I'm having, please support us by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review on your preferred podcast app. Subscribing is really going to be the best way to get all of these exclusive deadCenter interviews delivered directly to your ears throughout the festival. But without further ado, let's introduce today's very special guest, Dylan Brodie. He's this year's, again, deadCenter Icon Award winner. Dylan is from Ramona, Oklahoma. That is a population of around 500, I hear, and he's worked on film productions across Oklahoma, including The Mule, Stillwater, Borat, subsequent movie film, and Killers of the Flower Moon. And he's also been a producer on several acclaimed projects, such as Minari, last year's Fancy Dance. I say last year's Fancy Dance. deadCenter, played at deadCenter last year. It's going to be actually getting a release we'll talk about here in a moment. And he's also been a producer on the hit FX on Hulu show, Reservation Dogs. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Caleb. It's really an honor.
Always a pleasure to speak with a lot of the great folks who are really working hard in the film industry. And I got to say, congratulations on being named one of this year's deadCenter Oklahoma Film Icon winners.
It's truly an honor because it comes from the film family that I've grown up with, and it means the world to me to be recognized by them.
Wonderful. Well, again, you've been really doing a lot of amazing work here for many, many years. What would you say has been perhaps the most exciting thing about producing so many acclaimed projects right here in Oklahoma?
I would say the thing that fills me with the most gratitude is to be able to see the landscape change, because whenever, like, for years, I never even thought that I could work in the film industry, because whenever I was, coming up in the world, the film industry here was just microscopic. So for it to be able to grow over all of these years, just like to be in the system for so long and see us struggle for so many years to start to finally achieve the growth that we're seeing now, it's impossible to really put into words, just to see so many new faces and so many people find the joy that honestly for so many years I never even thought that I'd be able to feel. But like, I get to do this for a living every single day, and it fills my heart with just so much joy. And now we get to see that grow, and more projects are coming here. This, like, Oklahoma is on the rise just thanks to all the hard work that we put in over all these years. And that's, it means the world to me.
Well, it's truly been, I've been here since myself in Oklahoma since 2009, and just seeing the transformative change that has come about because people like you have been putting forth the effort. There's a lot of folks who might be entering the film industry or wondering, how do I get in? And again, because of the work you and a lot of incredible people who just kind of believed in it over the years now have opportunities afforded to them. So thank you for the work you've done here in the state.
So it gets me out of bed in the morning. I can't do anything else. I can't go back to the day job anymore. So no, this is my life.
That's the dream. No more day job. Now it's just movies.
Exactly.
I did want to talk a little bit about a few of the films that you've worked on. I know the ones that especially got a lot of critical acclaim. The first one that came to mind for me was Minari. Now, this was a film that actually was nominated for 6 Academy Awards during the 2021 ceremony, and it actually took home 1 win for supporting actress. So I'm curious, again, that being seeming like a relatively small production, before it became a critical hit, what about the project was most interesting to you or stood out?
Minari is just one of the things that I hold dearest to my heart, because for one, it was something that may not have even have happened in Oklahoma. Back in 2019, it was set to film in Georgia, but due to some political moves that were happening in Georgia, A24, the production company behind it, decided to no longer film in Georgia. And I had known the line producer, Josh Backhoff, from another project that just never took flight in Oklahoma. And he reached out to me and said, like, we can no longer film in Georgia. What would Minari look like if we filmed it in Oklahoma? And I still remember that call because I was in the parking lot of the mall in Oklahoma City. And then I said, just Josh, give me 30 minutes, let me throw together something for you. And then I had a whole bunch of scout photos because, fortunately, a lot of my background is location management. So I've been all over the state, especially all around the Tulsa area. And so I showed Josh, like Sperry, Oklahoma, was where I originally showed him, and then talked about all the crew and the rebates and all that kind of fun stuff. And then that landed Minari here. And when I read the script after even, just trying to boat Minari here, I knew that I would do anything. I would set myself on fire to make that movie happen just because the script was just that good. And then as I got to meet Isaac and get to know him, I truly treasured him because it was just a true labor of love on his part. And everyone came together to make that movie. Because when we were making Minari, it was 2019. We were in the middle of just this absolute brutal, just wicked summer. Each day was pretty much over 100 degrees. We had like 2-3 weeks straight where it was like almost 115 with the heat index. We had so little money, and like there were 5 other movies that were happening at the same time. Crew was really thin, and it was difficult to make on every level just because of the production hardships. But the heart was there, and everyone knew that they were making something special. And by the time we wrapped, like we had no inkling to know what Minari would eventually become, but we knew we had made something special. And then as it continued to chug along, the world immediately started changing because we then go into pandemic in 2020. And just before that happens, like we're playing at Sundance, we premiere there, and we win Sundance. Then the world opens up to us, and we have just an inkling of what Minari can become at this point. But then right after that, lockdown happens. The release just completely changes because, no, people can't be in theaters or anything. So we have no idea if people are even going to get to see Minari, if they're going to connect. But it was one of those movies that's like, I'm not just saying this because I helped make Minari, but it's really, in my opinion, one of the just like the purest deliverances of the American dream that's ever been put forth on film. And I think people connected with it at that time when everyone was just going through just such a terrible time together, and so many relationships were breaking up, and people were just like trying to claw out of meaning, and it really spoke to people. And then as it kept going, Golden Globes and then the Oscars, and it changed my life because, and especially as a filmmaker, Minari was the project that actually really got me traction because talk to so many filmmakers, and like people ask about like, oh hey, what have you worked on, can I see it anywhere? And generally your answer back in the day was just like, well, you might be able to see it like a year from now on Netflix, we don't know, depending on what happens. But it was one of those things where it's like, people have seen Minari, like you're all here. I was talking to Isaac before he came back to do Twisters, and another film that was going to try to film in Georgia, but Isaac demanded that he come back to Oklahoma for it. And he was talking about how he had his meeting with Steven Spielberg to get Twisters, and how much Steven Spielberg enjoyed Minari. And it's just like, it blows my mind to think that like Steven Spielberg watched something we helped create, and then there's like so many other impressive people have watched it. So it was really the turning point for me, in my opinion.
I love how you highlight something about that story is that it sort of encapsulates the American dream. And I know we could probably talk about that in a whole separate podcast, but I think it's really powerful that you're able to help produce this story that is both highly specific and yet so universal to so many people, at least here in the United States. I mean, does that bring you some sort of like a fulfillment knowing that a story that you're able to help tell was able to reach that broad audience and really connect with people, like you were saying, in a very deeply divided time?
Oh, absolutely. Because that really is, the dream for me personally for film. Like this is just something that I've always wanted to do my entire life since I was a kid, and I never even thought that it was possible for so long. And then once I got my feet on the ground and was actually to start to gain some traction here, it was never to like win awards or make money or anything like that. It was just to live the dream and to actually reach people, because movies are what kept me going as a kid and through my teen years. And then just all the difficult times, it was like, I want to do this, but I don't know if I can. And so I just really wanted people to feel what I felt watching movies, and a film like Minari did that, and it meant so much to me because of that.
You mentioned something a moment ago that I really want to hone in on, especially for a lot of our maybe up and coming filmmakers who are listening to the show today. You said you got your start in location scouting. Tell me a little bit about your journey from location scouting all the way up to full blown producer.
Oh, I've worn way too many hats in this industry to get to where I am right now, and locations was just one of them. I've pretty much done everything but stunts and script supervision, honestly. But so yeah, I started out in post. That was my way I could get my foot in the door back in the day in 2008. Like I knew a director that had a short film to cut together, and I jumped at the opportunity. No money in it, but I was able to cobble together an edit that ended us up on the short film circuit. If anyone's so interested, it was a short film called Sinking Bobo. It was about a dunk tank clown at the Tulsa State Fair. And it was also where I would get to meet my future collaborator, Mr. Sterling Harjo. He ended up filming a lot of it. So I picked his brain about it whenever I was cutting it together. And let's say we kind of hit it off from there. But then I had to, again, at this point in the industry, and especially in Tulsa, like most of everything was in Oklahoma City at this point. And in Tulsa, the industry was just microscopic. So I just did anything I could just to get on any set I could for years. And it wasn't really until 2012 that like there was enough of a pulse that was really happening that I got onto my first legitimate set that actually had walkie talkies, and that was a horror short in Tulsa. And then like it was a truck PA driving around a 26-foot box truck, had the entire production on it, and just I impressed some people along the way, and then I just kept getting work, and just never let my foot out of the door from there. And then just again, industry's so small here, you just got to say yes to every job just to be able to keep working. And then so I was fortunate to just work in so many different fields. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was preparing me to be a better producer later down the road because I'd done this job. I knew how long these jobs take. I kind of knew the monetary aspect to it as well, and it prepared me for the future. And then little did I realize that I would just unintentionally become a producer because in 2014 that's when Sterling Harjo tapped me to be the unit production manager, and I would also get an associate producer credit on his film Miko. And that was the first time anyone had given me responsibility. And that is when Sterling and I kind of really got to see the landscape of Tulsa. And I was like, this is the palette we have to paint with right now, and these are the colors that we need. And this is what we have to do to try to make it grow. And it was little did we realize it'd be almost a decade until we could really start to see the seeds that we planted back then grow. But we knew what we needed back then. And so just my mission from that point forth, after we got Miko under our belts, that I knew just like the key to us being successful here was growth. It was just like, these are the things that we're missing. This is what we need. It might be a long time down the road, but this is what we need to focus on. And then once Res Dogs started happening, in 2020, again, pandemic times, and it almost didn't happen because of pandemic, but that's another long story for another day. And that's when we were able to really see the seeds start to take root and grow, because we were able to like really start to build the crew base, build up the vendors, and then just have it be perennial. It just wasn't a circus coming into town, just like dropping money, pulling up stakes, and then leaving. We were able to keep coming back each year for 3 seasons and keep it growing. And then now we've got another pilot that we just barely wrapped, and fingers crossed it gets greenlit, and then we can have multiple seasons of that where we just keep the growth happening and just keep building up the infrastructure here, the crew base, and then just make it perennial and keep the dream alive.
Thank you so much for sharing about your background. And I love that you mentioned two things there. Number one, a good producer, I don't think anyone always sets out to be a producer so much as they do a lot of stuff. And then all of a sudden you realize wait, people need this, and I have these connections. So, I mean, kudos for you to putting in the work and then figuring out also simultaneously how to leverage those for these bigger productions as they scale bigger and bigger. The second thing you mentioned there that I really want to hone in on is Sterling Harjo. He is, really much like you, a pioneer for the film making scene here in Oklahoma. If you were going to describe your collaborations with him, what would you say sets your experience working with him apart from other collaborators?
So I will. This isn't just me, bragging here. It's just whenever you're on a Sterling Harjo set, the vibe is different. Like if I could, get you 10 different people from 10 different departments to talk about a Sterling Harjo set, it's different. It's just it has this familial feel to it. It's fun. The desire is this like we work way too hard to not enjoy what we're doing. And so we try to have a good time on set. And like just here on the last pilot we just finished up, the Sensitive Kind, we had so many people that had come from New York and LA and say that like this is the most fun I've ever had on a set. Like, why can't all the sets be like this? And that's by design. It's what we've been trying to do now for like over a decade. It's like any set we have, no matter how big or how small or how tiny a money we have to make it happen. Like, especially back in the day, we had $0 to make things happen. We just made them happen. We all wore 10 different hats, worked 23 hours a day, and just made them happen. And now we actually get to fully support people. Like, people get paid a proper rate, and people get to just fully bask in what it means to be a filmmaker. And it's the fun, it's the heart, it's the family, and that's really what it is to work with Sterling. And in that originally came from him, and it's my honor to be able to foster that environment and help grow all of the supporting characters around us.
Well, I can say as an Oklahoman, I'm so thankful for the work you all have been doing. And also makes me proud whenever we see a Sterling Harjo production pop up on an FX, or just seeing it, he's cited in all these Variety, all these hit magazines about one of the top rated shows of the year, or, hey, we got this cool pilot. Like, anything that you guys are working on together, I think really brings a lot of pride and aspirations to a lot of the filmmakers we have here in Oklahoma. I do want to shift gears a little bit and talk about one other project here. And this is actually one of last year's deadCenter darlings, Fancy Dance, from director Erica Tremblay, also starred an Oscar-nominated actress, Lily Gladstone. Why was it so exciting to see that film picked up by Apple recently, and what can you tell us about that?
Oh, it's a long and windy road there. And just remind me to make sure I end up back at Apple here. So that happened after season 2 of Res Dogs. And it had been germinating for a long time. Like, it went through the Sundance producing labs and everything. And so I was fortunate enough to have the inside track on its development for a long time before the cameras would ever start to roll. So like, I had Erica Tremblay and her other main producer, Deidre Bax. Like, we would chat about just like the logistics of it all leading up to filming. But why it's so just vitally important to me is not just the content, just the Erica's commentary on missing murder Indigenous women, and just like what the plot means to just a story that the world needs to hear, but also because it means that our mission is working, because we are able to crew up Fancy Dance with, let's say, almost like 70% res dogs that we've been training up over the years, like positions that we didn't have before, people that were readily available now in the Tulsa area to work on Fancy Dance. It's like the dream was coming alive because we're making these projects now. And then like we just poured our heart and soul into Fancy Dance because we were already a little bit tired just coming off of season 2 of Res Dogs, just going through, like, I legitimately had no days off. It's just like I was wrapping Res Dogs season 2 as I was going into prepping Fancy Dance. And so just it was a nonstop adventure. And again, it's one of those things where like you don't have enough money. It's brutally hot. Out of our entire shoot, every day but 3 days was over 100 degrees. COVID was just absolutely decimating our set. Like, we had the best, COVID protocols alive, but like all the new variants were coming through and just decimating the crew. And like, we don't have the money to bring people in. And so it was a very, very tough production, top to down. But however, Lily is just the absolute rock star of that production. Like, Erica Tremblay, absolute angel on earth, amazingly talented writer, director. But Lily is like really the heart of that production, because I've been fortunate enough to work with Lily since 2018, when Erica and I did the short film Little Chief that ended up going to Sundance. And like, Lily was essentially paid like practically $0 on that, and gave the exact same performance that she does, like she did in Killers of the Flower Moon or on Fancy Dance. She's just one of those just incredible sources of light on production, and it is just such a beacon for everybody. And she's what carried us through it. It was like we were all there to make Lily shine. And like, she hadn't really started to blow up yet on the Killers front yet, even though she had just barely wrapped Killers. But we knew that just the world is Lily's oyster, and we were doing it really for her and for Erica and just the storyline. But then just to put a fine point on it, distribution is just one of the elements of filmmaking that a lot of people aren't talking about now. Distribution is almost essentially broken because there's just so very few ways to really get your film seen nowadays. and you can just pour blood, sweat, and tears into your project, and then it can just languish because no one picks it up for eyes to see it. Like you might even have a successful festival run, but it can just lay in anguish. But Lily just put distribution on notice. Like she was getting all this heat on the Killers front. And then she just called it out on the world stage, talking about distribution, talking about how a film like Fancy Dance is so vitally important, should be seen. And Apple, took notice of it. And then another one of our producers, Heather Ray, helped run with that with her relationships with Apple as well, stitched up the distribution deal. And then now it's going to premiere in theaters June 21st and then ends up on Apple Plus on June 28th. And the world can finally see just all of the hard work that we put in. And I've seen it so many times at different festivals that we've played at, and I still bawl my eyes out every time that movie. So I really hope that people are able to connect with it as much as we all did.
Absolutely. And again, I saw that at last year's deadCenter Film Festival, and just tremendous work by everyone involved. I mean, Lily Gladstone is just like a powerhouse. I often think about the Roger Ebert quote about movies being machines that generate empathy. And when I finish watching that movie, I'm in tears. I'm thinking this is an experience I had never considered personally for myself, but I now have this little window into a much different and harsher reality that I hadn't considered. So just want to say congratulations on distribution for the film, and listeners, you absolutely should make it appointment viewing. Well, Dylan, I have a couple more questions here. I mean, before we start to wind down, you've worked on so many cool projects. The size continues to scale, and variety seems to be more bountiful than in previous years. What is a dream project that you would like to work on, perhaps?
This is going to sound cornball, but I'm living the dream now. Like 3 seasons of Res Dogs, and now The Sensitive Kind. It's a show that really showcases my home, Tulsa, and gets to bring in like so many cool faces. The press releases are out. People are gonna know about it soon enough. It's Ethan Hawke, it's Keith David, it's Derek Edelstein, it's Kyle MacLachlan, it's Jeannie Triplehorn, Tim Blake Nelson. There's like so many cool people that we have brought together to foster Sterling's dream. And it's what we've been building together for so long, and it's finally happened. So I can't wish for something to happen. I can't dream for something to happen, because it has happened, and fingers crossed we're all feeling really good about it. We get the green light and we get to make multiple seasons of it. But it really is it's the dream project right now, and then hopefully we just get to keep having different variations on that dream.
Yeah, well, best of luck. I know I've seen a lot of photos following Sterling's Instagram. It looks like a super cool project with a lot of really talented people I know I'm interested in watching at any point in time. What do you think is the biggest opportunity for Oklahoma as a state that's great for filmmakers and filmmaking?
So the greatest opportunity, I think, in Oklahoma is for us to capitalize on sustainable growth. We don't want to be one of the markets where we got too big too quick, and then we can't sustain that growth, and then it crumbles. So we are on this really nice trajectory right now to where we grow incrementally and then we sustain it. So that's really what I think the baseline needs to be for our future goals. It's just like we don't try to just immediately build 10 sound stages and then we don't have projects and then everything crumbles. But instead, we just do everything properly as we have done so far. And then also making sure that we have, the incentive is, as a producer, as much as I want another producer to be coming to Oklahoma because it's the exact right place to film, they're going to be doing it because of the bottom dollar. And ultimately, a lot of that comes down to like the rebates that you get from the state and other entities within the state. So that's another key to our future success. But on the crew front, Oklahoma isn't an entrenched market like New York or Los Angeles, where people think like, oh, I got called to be a grip once. I got to be a grip forever now, or I'll never get called again for anything else. So like Oklahoma, if you start to make your way into the industry, just communicate to everybody around you. So like if you're trying, costumes or grip or whatever, and you're not really pleased doing it, let us know. Try something else. We'll foster you because you are our family. We want you to be happy. Like we work really long hours, work really hard. We want you to be happy doing what you're doing. And Oklahoma is a market that fosters that. So please, like, find what you're passionate about, and then just look for my giant head on set. Talk to me about it, and I will try to help you find what you're passionate about, get you in contact with the right people, and then we can train you up on the day. Like we've been doing it for years now. So just the ability to grow in Oklahoma is really what sets us apart.
Yeah, thanks for laying it out. Again, it's been so exciting to see that incremental growth you're talking about almost before our eyes, between downtown studios here in Oklahoma City to, I mean, just the incredible stuff we've seen from Tulsa in the last several years as well. Well, hey, I want to talk a little bit about the films you do have playing at this year's deadCenter Film Festival. So I know you have two short films, Vivian and Meet Me at the Creek. Maybe you could start, just tell us a little bit about Vivian first and what's it about and why should listeners put it on their calendar or on their schedule?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing these to the attention of the listeners. So, Vivian is the directorial debut of writer director Cheyenne Scarborough, a fellow res dog. She is our on-set dresser, and then also just like really incredibly talented director that we were able to give a chance to make her first creation. And we did that after Fancy Dance. Actually, that's like we had this ridiculous run. We did Res Dog season 2, then we did Fancy Dance, and then we cranked out Vivian right after that. And so we were able to really help. Like Tulsa is essentially a character in the story as well, and we just really wanted to give it this texture that was inspired by the classic cinema of that Cheyenne was inspired by. So we were able to reach out to Panavision and got a 16 millimeter package just for an absolute song. Thanks to Panavision's willing to support those that want to shoot on film, and then a donation from our DP Charles Elmore and Sunrise Tibicani, our gaffer, also integral to the deadCenter Film Festival. Like they both had a bunch of cans of film that we were able to shoot it on, and like everyone came in together and pitched in their time and effort, and we shot it over a few days. And it's just this little slice of life piece where a young woman finds herself in need of some money, or if she doesn't get it, she's going to find herself without a home. So it's just this little slice of life piece that is really Tulsa heavy and just so near and dear to all of us. And then Meet Me at the Creek is upcoming writer director powerhouse Lauren Waters. Like she's already has so many projects that she's got coming up on the horizon, and also another fellow res dog. She is our background casting director. And this is just a very passionate project on Lauren's behalf. It's looking at the Tar Creek Superfund. It's northeastern Oklahoma. If anyone's familiar with Pitcher, the town that is sadly abandoned now, just due to all of the contamination. It's a look at Tar Creek there. And Meet Me at the Creek is Rebecca Jim, an elder, talking about the creek itself, efforts to try to restore the creek. And Lauren does this beautiful portrayal of the facts of what it is like now, and then just sort of this dreamy portrayal of is it reality? Is it a look at the future? Is it a dream? Like segments that we filmed partially digital, also in film with an old Bolex camera at the same creek where we filmed the opening of Fancy Dance. And so it's just this beautiful portrayal of just like a very tragic issue and something that people can learn from, so that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated in the future. So it's very personal. It's very beautiful, and it's something that I think everyone should go see this year at deadCenter.
Yeah, again, those films are Vivian and Meet Me at the Creek, listeners. I highly encourage you to check it out, add it to your schedule. I, for one, haven't seen them yet, but I am looking forward to catching both of them. All right, Dylan, close us out here. What would you say is your most memorable film-going experience?
Film-going experience? Oh, wow. Let's see here. It's a little trite because it's a lot of people's favorite films, but like I love movies. I am here because of my late mother. Like she is the one that made me love movies. And the movie that like really just made my brain explode as a kid is when she showed me Star Wars. Like it was one of those things just like, wow, this is people get to do this. Like this is amazing. And I just kind of like went down the rabbit hole, like to learn about it and everything. And it was that it turned my brain on in terms of filmmaking and changed everything for me. And that's, again, it's a lot of people's favorite movie, but it's what really just opened the world for me and just sent me on my path to just be a voracious film watcher, just any genre, you name it, just to get to experience it and hope that dream is one day a reality. So thanks to my mom showing me Star Wars.
There's something magical about when your mom shows you Star Wars. I know that was a similar story for me. Kind of changes the game a little bit. Well, hey, Dylan, I know we're about out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Congrats on being named one of this year's deadCenter Film Festival icons. Where can people follow either your work or your film, or is there anyone on social media people can follow you?
Oh, I am terrible at self-promotion, but look for this big old head on Instagram, Dylan Brodie. There's an underscore in there. That's one of the few places I promote things. And then check out the old IMDb. And then also Sterling's way better at promoting most of the stuff we work on. So follow his social media. It's way more entertaining.
Dylan Brodie, this year's deadCenter icon. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And listeners, for all other things deadCenter, you can head on over to deadcenterfilm.org. If you haven't bought a pass yet, they're still available. June 6th through the 9th. It's going to be a great time. Consider supporting the festival by purchasing a badge or individual ticket. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you again in our next deadCenter Film Festival interview.